Hello, friends. It's a chilly winter day, and the sun is setting behind me right now. It's a beautiful time of day. I wanted to share a few thoughts on the current energies in the air and how we can kind of move through what's happening now. So it's really been an interesting few years, to say the least, and I've noticed a few things in my life and in the collective, and I'm going to share a few thoughts that might be helpful for you. One of those things is, I've talked about this a lot of times, is that there are patterns that we're being asked to break in our lives, from past lives, from this life, and we know that there's a pattern coming up to be broken when we feel really triggered by something, when we have a strong emotion, anger, sadness, and often it's based on a belief that we might be carrying about being enough, or being liked, or being accepted or not. And it's often through other people that these things come up. And I've certainly experienced this myself recently. And I'll talk about that in another video in just a moment. But that's, instead of saying, oh, this thing's happening again, or I just, I can't deal with this, or, reacting in the emotion, whether it's, really, getting somebody back, revenge out of anger, or kind of going down on yourself and really, self-doubt. See if you can take a moment and just look at the belief. I actually had a friend I was having dinner with the other day, and she was sharing a belief she was carrying. And I said, just ask yourself if that's really true deep down, or if there's another perspective. Could there be something else going on that's actually happening? What often happens is that when we experience something that we don't understand, when somebody's behaving a certain way often, and sometimes, we don't understand why. And so we'll tend to do one of two things, or two things. One, we tend to go beat ourselves up. It must be something that I did. It must be because I'm bad, or I've done something wrong. Or we go to the external. So that's internalizing, right? The externalizing would be it's their fault. It's their problem. They're the ones that are bad. What if the truth is somewhere in the middle? What if it could be, maybe I can improve. Maybe I can, maybe I've done something to contribute to this. Maybe the other person's done something to contribute to this. Sometimes it's all the other person. Sometimes it's all us. Usually it's somewhere in the middle. Just asking ourselves that question can really help us move through the lesson and the learning, so we can stop having this stuff happen, right? The goal is to not having to keep going through the patterns. This is they say, it's the lifetime of mastery. When we are mastering these lessons, maybe this has happened to us in many past lives. We've had a conflict with a certain person in many lifetimes, or we've allowed ourselves to go into shame or self-doubt by the actions of a certain person or people in other lifetimes. And we keep repeating the same sorts of roles with that person. This is a lifetime where we say, you know what? Maybe my pattern was to really blame myself and say it was my fault. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to stand up for myself, or speak my truth. Or maybe my pattern was to blame other people all the time and always, get angry and say it's all these, it's their fault. And maybe this time I'm going to actually look at myself and say, well, what can I be doing differently myself? Just pausing and asking the question is so powerful. That's often where we can start. Just pausing and saying, what's happening here? Where's the emotion in my body? How can I feel it? And how can I process it? That's really important. We can't just deny what we're feeling and make it go away. That's important to experience it. And then what's the belief attached to this? Is there a thought that's coming up? That's often the easiest thing to work with first, is the thought. And then this can take time, right? Digging into the thought and is there a belief that I'm carrying about myself or about others, about the world, that might not be true? The tricky part here is that we often, if we have a belief or a thought and we give too much energy to that, we can then start to get deeper into that story and even create and attract more experiences we don't want based on that belief. So I hope this has been helpful in some way. Quieting the mind, asking the questions is the way to go about it. And dropped my phone. And bringing in higher guidance. They'll always help us. Many blessings.